So, you've clicked on this video to find some cheap Nintendo Switch 2 games to play, because obviously all the good stuff ranges all the way from $70, and sometimes there's that one game like Mario Kart World that's $80. And today I found the perfect game that you can play on your Nintendo Switch 2 for less than $15. And today we're gonna be going over that game and why you should be picking it up for your Nintendo Switch 2. But before we jump into that, y'all already know what I'm gonna ask for. We're trying to hit 21,000 subscribers by the end of the month, and I feel like we can definitely pull that off. So if you guys have not subscribed to the channel yet, I would greatly appreciate it, as we've been doing Switch 2 videos almost every single day. We've been doing reviews, we're about to have top 10s, games to avoid, stuff like that. So definitely stay tuned into the channel. Let's jump right into the game. So obviously the game that we are talking about today is Fast Fusion. This was a launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2, and if y'all have been paying attention to my videos, I have been hyping this game up. In fact, I've been a fan of this series since the beginning when it was on the Wii as a WiiWare game. And it's kind of crazy to see how far it's gone from being WiiWare to still being an ongoing series. And what made me so pumped about the one that was coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 is because technically it was the first new one in the series since the Wii U. A lot of people don't realize it, but Fast RMX for the Nintendo Switch was actually a remaster of Fast Racing Neo from the Wii U. Because that game came out so late into the Wii U cycle, the developers was like, okay, let's just port this to the Switch. And actually it was a launch day title for the Switch 1, so it's kind of crazy to see that it's also now a launch title for Switch 2, the brand new one in the series, that being Fast Fusion. And obviously if you pay attention to the gameplay of this game, you're obviously gonna see what it pays tribute to, which is F-Zero. These developers are a big fan of F-Zero, and they've made that very clear in almost every single game they've made with this series. In fact, they even have an actor from the F-Zero GX game that does all the voice lines of this game. So it's very clear what they're paying tribute to, and honestly, it's probably going to be the only real F-Zero game you get for a very long time, because Nintendo doesn't seem to care, unless it's like an F-Zero 99, which that was super successful. We all kind of thought that we might get a whole new game from the F-Zero series after that, but as of right now, nothing has happened, and Fast Fusion is going to be the perfect game for you to play, even if you don't care about F-Zero. It is a $15 game, guys. $15. And if we talk about the stuff that is jam-packed into this, it's crazy that the fact that this game was $15. Let's first talk about the visuals of Fast Fusion. Right as you play this game, you're like, oh my gosh, I paid $15 for this? This is incredible. The visuals are absolutely stunning. As you play through every stage of this game, I kept thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this has got to be one of the most beautiful Switch 2 games out there. The developers definitely pushed the hardwares to the limits with this, and the game looked absolutely phenomenal. I actually went ahead and changed from quality mode and performance mode the whole time when I was playing the game. And obviously quality mode, it still, it makes the visuals even better than what it is, but it makes it at 30 frames per second. And I feel like these racing games, I think I would rather have the better frame rate than having a better looking game. And even with performance mode, having it at 60 frames per second, it still looked very good. And it's very interesting to see what they are doing with all these options when it comes to customizing how the game is going to look, because the developers are talking about adding extra modes to make the game maybe even run at 120 frames per second. It's something that they're still working on, and they haven't confirmed that it is happening, but they have said it is a mode that they are looking to do. They actually just announced a new graphics mode this morning called Pure. It's gonna upscale the game to generate a clearer image. So I guess this might be in response to the quality mode, because that was something that I noticed that I felt like when you're looking at all the other stuff, it's just not as clear because it's like so graphically demanding at that point. But I don't know, I don't really understand if that's what they're doing or not. But that just goes to show that they're obviously updating this game as free updates all the time, adding different graphics modes, different customizations. I love the fact when Switch 2 games give you the option to show how you want the game to look and run. Speaking of running, I put this game to the absolute limits in both frame rate options, from quality mode and performance mode, and it remained locked at the frame rate it was supposed to, which honestly I was very surprised, because with certain courses I thought for sure if I crashed into a certain area the game was definitely going to dip. Especially there's a stage where you're driving around tornadoes and I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely gonna hurt the game's performance. I'm here to say that no, the performance was not messed up at all with this game, which heavily surprised me, because I really don't know how this developer has pulled this off, and especially still charging $15. Fast RMX was $20, so they're charging a $5 difference cheaper for the brand new entry in the series rather than a remaster. I was really thrown off by that. The developer clearly knows the Nintendo hardware very well. They gotta continue making games, man. I think Nintendo should look into these people to make the next F-Zero if they ever wanted to do a new F-Zero, because they clearly know what they're doing with this series and it's working so well. You know, something that I struggled with this series before was the controls. As I played through Fast Racing Fusion, I was impressed to say that the controls felt so smooth. I felt like I didn't have to really adapt to any. I never did very well in Fast Racing on the Wii, and Fast RMX, I really didn't do well either. But with the controls of Fast Fusion, I was able to get through the game, get through these harder difficulty options, and be good at the game. And normally I would always struggle with this series because of the controls. I don't really know what they did different here, but they adapted to something new and made it a smoother transition to play the game. I don't know, I know that sounds weird. I don't know what they did, but it was something I wanted to point out, because I felt like with Fast RMX, I didn't play the game as long as I would have wanted to, because the controls just felt all over the place for me. And once again, I want to talk about the $15 price tag, because the developers have confirmed that free DLC is coming to the game. We already talked about how they're adding different modes to customize the graphics and all that good stuff, but they're planning on adding stages and whatever else they want to add to the game as a free update, which is super exciting considering the game already is pretty jam-packed for $15, if I'm honest. There is one thing that I was incredibly disappointed by, because Fast RMX had this, and I was surprised to see that Fast Fusion got rid of it. There is no online mode to this game. Now, I'm sure there is reasoning behind this. I bet when Fast RMX came out, the online community for that game was strong, and then it probably died out pretty fast when Nintendo started releasing games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Splatoon. Games that had online probably started to kill Fast RMX. And I assume that paying for servers is probably a decent amount of money, especially for an indie developer. That's probably way more money than they want to put into something. And as of right now, there is no online mode for Fast Fusion, which is so disappointing to see, because I feel like this developer has really found the perfection of this series, and this one could have done really well within the online community. I feel like a lot of you watching this video would actually pick up the game if it had online mode, just due to the fact that you could play with friends, just play with more people, because not everyone can come over to do multiplayer at your house. And I feel like multiplayer is a pretty big deal with a game like this. So the fact that they did not put online mode is pretty disappointing, and I'm hoping that the developers are somehow watching this video and are able to add online to this, because I think this would really keep the game alive for months and months. Even with Nintendo putting out games with online mode, I still think the community could be something very strong with this, because this is a very good game. I honestly didn't really have any issues with the game. They added different modes such as superhero mode, which was basically you had to go through the stage without crashing. If you crashed, that's it, you gotta start all over. And what I thought was very interesting about this mode is I liked how they showed the amount of attempts that you've done to beat the stage without crashing, stuff like that. I thought that was cool. And what I love the most about it is it's permanently on the game. So you can open up the game, go to superhero mode, and try to do that course, and it still show you the amount of times you crashed. That was something they didn't need to do, but they did it, and it's kind of funny because you're reminded of either, oh wow, I did amazing at that stage, or oh wow, I did absolutely horrible. What was I thinking there? And honestly, it was a cool addition to the game. I loved it a lot. They obviously had the time trials mode still in there, which I feel like was something that was in RMX, where you're basically beating the developer's best record of beating the course. So that was pretty cool having that in there. Especially I like how they emphasized that, hey, this is the developer's time. This is how fast they got through the course. Can you beat it? I love that. That's a different thing to have in a game. Now, I know there's some people that have stuff like that, but I love how they emphasize, hey, this is the developer score. Attempt to beat it. And I really can't complain too much about the game's length. Yes, it is a shorter game, but it is a $15 game that also has stuff still coming to it. This has way too much stuff in it to be $15 already. It's pretty jam-packed, and it's something that I could highly recommend to everyone. And I hope that maybe in the future, F-Zero happens and they look at these developers and be like, hey, we want you to develop this, because they are obviously big fans of the series. I feel like these games are always tributes to those games, and it's the only F-Zero stuff you're gonna get. Let's just face it, because Nintendo, I don't think, cares about this series. But in terms of my score for this game, and if you should buy it or not, I'm going to be giving Fast Fusion a 9 out of 10. The only issue I have with the game is the online mode. I feel like there should have been online in here. That would have been a big selling point, I feel like, to the people watching this video. I know online's not for everyone, but I feel like I know my community pretty well, and I feel like the fact that it doesn't have online is going to disappoint some people. So if developers are watching this, as you're doing your free updates, maybe look into doing that if it's, you know, I don't know how much that stuff is. I'm gonna guess having servers run and all that stuff is pretty expensive though. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I thought it was fun to talk about a cheap Nintendo Switch 2 game that you should run and buy, because, you know, a lot of this stuff ranges all the way from 50 to 70, and even Mario Kart being $80. And if I ever have the opportunity to show y'all games that are cheap and I can recommend and say, hey, buy this, I'm always going to take that opportunity. And that's what Fast Fusion was, in my opinion. An amazing opportunity and an amazing game. Guys, I have been talking for way too much. Make sure to backslash that subscribe button, like the video, check out the Twitter, check out the Discord, Instagram, become a Monado Marine, $5 a month, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace. All right.